Maryland State Delegate Dan Cox won the GOP gubernatorial primary last night over former State Commerce Secretary Kelly Schultz. But the story behind the story is that this becomes yet another example of the Democrats, yes, the Democrats, helping an extremist and election-denying Republican candidate win a primary. A candidate they helped win, who they also warn is a fundamental threat to democracy. Former Trump advisor Alyssa Farah Griffin condemned Cox's primary win by asking on Twitter, quote, "Come on, guys, what are we doing? Do we really want to be represented by QAnon followers, extremists, and conspiracy theorists?" Griffin's comments came with a link to an article that described Dan Cox as, quote, "a man who organized buses to Washington on January 6th, tweeted during the Capitol riot that Vice President Mike Pence was a traitor, tried to impeach Maryland Republican Governor Larry Hogan over his actions to stem COVID, and spoke to a QAnon conference this spring." But Cox won this primary with the benefit of more than $1 million spent in ads purchased on his behalf by the Democratic Governors Association because they think he'll be easier to beat in the general election. The ads were intended to sort of quietly establish his conservative credentials with GOP voters.
Meet Dan Cox, Donald Trump's hand-picked candidate for Maryland governor. Cox worked with Trump, trying to prove the last election was a fraud. 100% pro-life. He's fighting to end abortion in Maryland. And Cox will protect the Second Amendment at all costs.
Again, that was from the Democrats. They think it's going to help Cox, and it seems to have worked. Most saw the primary battle between Cox and his more moderate opponent, Kelly Schultz, as a proxy battle between Trump and current Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, who's blasted Trump. And in reaction to Cox winning, he said, quote, "Trump lost Republicans the White House, the House, and the Senate. He selfishly colluded with national Democrats to cost us a governor's seat in Maryland, where I ran 45 points ahead of him. He's fighting for his ego, we're fighting to win, and the fight goes on." Utah Republican Senator Mitt Romney chimed in, telling the Huffington Post, quote, "It's not illegal, but it sure is stupid. Be careful what you wish for. You may select somebody who actually wins, and then you hurt the country as well as your own party." Now, I've shared the same sentiment many times on this show. Not only is it potentially dangerous, but it also makes Democrats look hypocritical for telling us how dangerous the candidate is, the candidate who they actually supported in the primary. Joining me now is Maryland-based Democratic strategist Kevin Walling. Kevin, thanks very much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. All right, so am I getting something wrong here in my analysis of what Democrats have done in Maryland?
No, I don't think you've gotten anything wrong. I mean, you have painted these candidates both in Pennsylvania, and I watched the program yesterday, and today in Maryland when we see these results, as extremists. I think it's actually a smart play by the DGA. We've seen this in previous election cycles where out of the mainstream Republicans have been nominated to go on and lose in the general election. But I think your advice in yesterday's program is apt, that if you come for the king, you best not miss. And now Democrats need to make sure we don't miss in the next 111 days with these candidates.
Well, I mean, you referred to it as a smart play, right? And there is a sense of sort of gamesmanship around that. And I wonder whether there's any concern, win or lose, about the hypocrisy around it. The idea that Democrats spend money to endorse candidate they think is horrible, candidate then wins GOP primary, so Democrats can then talk about how horrible candidate is, right?
Dan, I don't know if it's hypocrisy. I think it's a smart, as I said, campaign tactic. The DGA, the Democratic governors, I was just with them up in Maine at their summer meeting, play to win. Politics ain't beanbag, and you know the fact that you saw Dan Cox, now votes are still being counted, win by more than 16 points in Maryland. You saw Doug Mastriano, as you pointed out, win by 23 points in Pennsylvania. I think the DGA had an effect maybe in the margins in terms of those vote totals, but they necessarily represent the base of the Republican primary electorate in those two states.
So I'm going to ask you, since you watched the show last night, the same question I asked last night, which is, if Cox wins, did Democrats make a huge mistake?
Have me back in 112 days and I will answer that, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, but seriously, I mean, if he were to win, what do Democrats say at the end of that? Do they say we totally messed up?
Well, I think Maryland, and I have a lot of work experience in Maryland, is unique and separate from what we see in Pennsylvania. Maryland is home to supermajorities of Democrats in both the House of Delegates and the state Senate. And they very effectively, over the last 8 years with Larry Hogan, have overridden a number of his vetoes and things like that. And actually, the Maryland governor is actually not that strong of a governor compared to other states. So as long as we keep the state Senate and the House of Delegates blue and counter the extremism that we would see from the governor, I think it's still a safe bet.
Wait, come on. I mean, you're basically saying it doesn't matter, right? So we're good. We got the House and the Senate. So you know what? The governor kind of doesn't matter anyway. I mean,
No, the governor certainly matters. I think it's a different situation from Pennsylvania, where you have a 50-50 kind of electorate going on. And in Maryland, again, we play to win. I'm not ceding any ground in this governor's race to Dan Cox.
Right. But again, no regrets. Dan Cox won. Democrats backed him. And that's good.
No regrets. Let's beat the heck out of them as we play to win.
Again, you better hope you win. We shall see, because in Pennsylvania, it seems to be backfiring a bit, right? I mean, in Pennsylvania, the numbers that Mastriano is showing have been surprising everybody, and they're going in the right direction for Mastriano.
Certainly, it's a tighter race in Pennsylvania. I'm encouraged by seeing so many mainstream Republicans actually come out and endorse Josh Shapiro in that race. Again, 112 days out from that election is a long way to go. And certainly there are some headwinds against Democrats in a midterm election like this. But I'm hopeful in Pennsylvania that we'll continue to keep Harrisburg blue in terms of that governor's race as well.
This is a dangerous game, man. And I get it. I mean, you're saying politics is a dirty game, and I hear that. But
it ain't beanbag, Dan.
I get it. But the game you guys are playing isn't just, I'm not talking about how dirty it is. I'm talking about how dangerous the chances that you guys are taking are. But
Dan, we did not find these candidates to run. They represent mainstream Republican primary views in these states. This is not a Democrat campaign in terms of recruiting these candidates to run. These represent Trump-backed candidates in these races. These are mainstream Republicans.
But you're helping them. I mean, again, you can't distance yourself from it. You guys, it's not just like you said, we hope this person wins. You put money behind it.
Absolutely, because we can beat them in the general election, and we better sure as heck do that.
We shall see. Kevin Walling, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.